Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the Spirit Workshop, which is the last and the third workshop in a three-part series of Mind, Body, and Spirit Wellness with Dr. Sujata Kelkar Shetty, presented to you by the Happiness Collective. My name is Garima, and I am part of THC. THC is a community of citizens who have come together at a time of crisis during COVID to share empathy, kindness, and gratitude and improve their emotional and mental wellness. Our work is across building our community online through social media, live streamed events and programming like this one on YouTube, and building resources for mental health with professionals in the field. We are really grateful for Dr. Sujata for hosting this workshop with us. Dr. Sujata herself needs no introduction. She's the best-selling author of 99 Not Out, Your Guide to a Long and Healthy Life, is an award-winning life coach and a biological scientist. And I think I can safely say, after working with her on these workshops and the talk, I think also a very good friend now. Before I hand it over to Dr. Sujata, I just want to conduct a check-in with everyone about how we are doing. I will be casting a poll on Zoom that you can fill out, and please go ahead. The Happiness Collective aims to build resources for mental and emotional wellness. We want to see how you're doing today. How are you feeling right now? What gives you the most happiness? What aspect of mental and emotional wellness is most difficult for you? The answers to this poll will not be shared, so please be assured of your confidentiality. If you don't feel like participating, that's totally fine as well. If anybody is not able to access the poll, please let me know in the chat box. Thank you, everyone, to those who've answered so far. To those who haven't, I would encourage you to participate. This really helps us at the Happiness Collective understand what people in these times need and what kind of resources we can curate for them. Great. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating, checking in with us, letting us know how you're doing. I will now give it away to Dr. Sujata.
Thank you, my dear. It's a pleasure to be here with you and the Happiness Collective. We'll jump straight in. We're going to keep this workshop, as in my talking, briefer than the last two, so that we can have more engagement from you and answer your questions and your comments, and we would love for you to share what's going on with you in the context of what we talk about today. So we'll start with this short clip. I hope you enjoy it. And please type in the movies you recognize as the clip plays. You'll know what I mean once the music begins. Enjoy.
This year, I had the privilege of conducting the annual Academy Awards Oscar show. And one of the things I wanted to do this year with our orchestra there was to do a tribute to as many Oscar-winning composers and contending composers that I could. So we put together a series of little melodic clips, if you like, just a short bit to identify each piece. You'll be able to identify a lot of them. Some of them you may miss. See how many you can catch in this Academy Award medley.
All right. So the reason to show you that clip was to just remind you of how powerful music is, right? Music is amazing. It has the power to lift us out of despair and inspire joy and enthusiasm. It can calm us down and or energize us, right? The more movies you recognize in this short video clip, the more alert you would be feeling right now. And historically, I learned this today, in fact, that movie was likely a part of human existence from before the Great Migration of the Homo sapiens species out of Africa. So we're talking about at least 100,000 years ago, right? Music has been a part of our existence for more than 100,000 years. Just think about that. So then, and when you think about that, it won't come as a surprise to you that medical research and the experience of musical therapists is that music has the power to heal, and it has the power to help us manage our stress and our anxiety. So how can we apply this knowledge today? One, you already know what music it is that you enjoy and what you like listening to. And what you can do is actively use that to your benefit. So you can actually create a playlist, so easy these days, create a soothing playlist for yourself in times of stress and listen to that, or listen to your CDs that you know that you enjoy, right? It really doesn't matter what the music is as long as you enjoy it. So I love jazz, but that might not be something that you enjoy, and jazz doesn't work all the time, right? Western classical music is incredibly soothing and organizing for the brain, but that's for me. You may not enjoy that. I enjoy Indian classical music again. That may not be something that you like. Maybe you like Bollywood. Maybe you like the movie soundtracks. Maybe you like pop. Maybe you like rock. It really doesn't matter what you like, is the point. The point is that music has the power to uplift us, to heal us, to serve us in our times of need, and we can use that to our benefit, right? The only thing we need to watch out for is that our heartbeat is impacted by the beat of the music, which is why when we work out, we like to listen to fast-paced, catchy rhythms, because it serves us in our goal to get a good workout out, right? Whether you're doing cardio, whether you're in the gym, whether you're running, whether you're walking briskly, it helps us. But when in times of stress and anxiety, what you need is a calmer, slower beat. But a calmer, slower beat that with words that elicit a positive emotion. So you don't want to listen to a calm, slow beat and a sad song, particularly not at a time like this, right? So actively choose positive music to uplift your mood. Research has also shown us that listening to music can reduce the anxiety associated with surgical procedures. It can help reduce anxiety in cancer patients. And you know that it works for you. This is something that you already know, right? It's just time to put that knowledge in practice, given the circumstances, given the amount of stress we're having to handle these days. Make it actively something that you consciously do in your life for yourself, right? Next slide, please. So in the Spirit workshop, we really wanted to spend some time talking to you about, leading a life of meaning, right? Because an important component of a life well lived, an important component of well-being is leading a life of meaning. Psychologists universally agree on this, right? And I'm going to tell you a story that's based on a poem written by Kurt Vonnegut called Joe Heller, right? And the poem is called Joe Heller, and it's about an incident that happened in Kurt Vonnegut and Joe Heller's life. Joe Heller was the novelist who wrote Catch-22. It's a World War II novel, and Kurt Vonnegut is a novelist as well. So the two of them had gone to a billionaire's house for a meal, for a party, and Kurt Vonnegut jokingly told Joe Heller, this man probably makes more in a day than you made selling all those copies of Catch-22, right? And Catch-22 was a bestseller, sold millions of copies. And Joe Heller turned to Kurt and said, but I have what this man doesn't. And Kurt said, what could you possibly have that this man doesn't? Right? And what are you talking about? Like, he has everything. He's a billionaire and he's making more and more money every single day, more than you could ever imagine. So what do you mean by that? And Joe said, the knowledge that I have enough. And that's just it, right? Often we run after more, thinking that this will lead to more meaning. But being content and seeking to be content, this is very important, right? Being content, and if we're not, then seeking to be content, is really an integral part of leading a meaningful life. And this gets completely lost in our quest for more, right? I also want to talk to you about Viktor Frankl, right? Viktor Frankl was a very well-known psychologist, a celebrated psychologist, and he survived the concentration camps in Auschwitz, right? And can we go to the next slide, please? This is what he had to say, and there's an extension to this quote that I'm going to read. So I'm going to go ahead and read it, and then the section that you can see in front of you is part of it, right? And he said this from his experience, what he had learned from his extraordinarily difficult experience. What was really needed was a fundamental change in our attitude towards life. We had to learn ourselves, and furthermore, we had to teach the despairing men that it did not really matter what we expected from life, but rather what life expected from us. We needed to stop asking about the meaning of life and instead to think of ourselves as those who are being questioned by life itself, daily and hourly. Our answer must consist not in talk and meditation, but in right action and right conduct. Life ultimately means taking the responsibility to find the right answers to its problems and to fulfill the tasks which it constantly sets for each individual. These tasks, and therefore the meaning of life, differ from man to man, and from moment to moment, which is exactly what we're seeing right now, right? With this pandemic, we're all in the same storm together, but in different boats. Each boat with its own challenge, with its own convenience, but we're all in the same storm, and we all have our own challenges. Thus, it is impossible to define the meaning of life in a general way. Questions about the meaning of life can never be answered by sweeping statements. Life does not mean something vague, but something very real and concrete. Just as life tasks are very real and concrete. They form man's destiny, which is different and unique for each individual. No man and no destiny can be compared with any other man or any other destiny, right? No situation repeats itself. And he goes on to say that when a man finds that it is his destiny to suffer, he'll have to accept his suffering as his task, his single and unique task. It's difficult to swallow, but there it is, right? And this is also what our scriptures tell us. He will have to acknowledge the fact that even in suffering, he is unique and alone in this universe. No one can relieve him of his suffering or suffer in his place. His unique opportunity lies in the way in which he bears his burden, right? And before I say that, okay, this was one person who said this, but I interviewed somebody in 2018 who completely agreed with Viktor Frankl. His name is Siddhant Patnaik, and he's unfortunately not with us anymore. He was a young sports journalist who had been diagnosed with synovial carcinoma. He'd been through several rounds of radiation, chemotherapy, surgery, etc. And he lost his voice box by the time we spoke. But he managed to speak to me with an electrolarynx. And I asked him if he agreed with Viktor Frankl. And he said, yes, I do believe that meaning is to be found in suffering, right? Why are we talking about this today? We're talking because we're all suffering in different ways. We're all grieving in different ways. Some in a very for a reason that's very close and very dear to our hearts. In other ways, it's a little more distant, depending on the level of grief. But we're all grieving in different ways, right? So this is why we're talking about suffering. And he said that I do believe that meaning is to be found in suffering. Remember, this man had gone through several surgeries, several rounds of radiation. He was a young man, should have been in the prime of his life, and had really struggled already. And he said that he reads the Bhagavad Gita every day, and that it's taught him not to ask why me, but instead to withstand the suffering and grow through it as he was going through it. He said that had he not been diagnosed with cancer, he may not have learned so much about himself, and he would not have found the vocation that he absolutely loved. He loved cricket journalism. He wrote prolifically, right? You can check on the web, you'll find many of his writings, right? And this meaning of life that we're talking about, the meaning that can be found in suffering, whether there is suffering or not, but the meaning of life that we're talking about, and leading a life of meaning is what the Japanese call ikigai. And if we haven't already found what makes our life meaningful, then we can start now, right? Jab jago tab savera. But it's important to find what it is that gives our life meaning. And the next question then that you would ask me is, so what gives my life meaning? Like, where do I start, right? So psychologists have discovered that there are 3 pillars to a meaningful life. And we'll go through each of them in turn. The first one is called purpose. Next slide, please. So purpose is basically having a goal or a series of goals that are based on something larger than yourself. So it could be your family, it could be your neighborhood, it could be your community, it could be your school if you're a young person, it could be your college, it could be your university, it could be your clinic, it could be your city, it could be your country, right? But it's about setting goals that are larger than you and working to meeting them. So of course, it's one thing to set them, and the other thing is working towards meeting them. That's what gives our life purpose. And it's very important to have purpose. And it's very important to set those goals consciously so that you are moving towards them, right? On a daily basis. So that's purpose. The next aspect, the next pillar, right, is significance. Significance is really interesting, right? It's what brings our life joy while we're planning. So it's all the incidental stuff that happens. The joke that your child shared with you, the flower. I just noticed a purple trumpet flower creeper that had landed on my hedge unexpectedly. I had not planted a creeper there, but somehow it had arrived there. And there's a purple flower right in my hedge, suddenly appearing, made an appearance today. And it was so beautiful. And that to me was a significant moment in my day. The smile you share with your significant other when you both get something at the same time, the conversation you had with your parents, realizing that they are, happy and healthy, the sun sleep sort of emerging through the clouds because it's been raining in your city. There are so many little moments in the day, right? A nice cup of coffee early in the morning, something that I really cherish, my half an hour before the household wakes up. So that's another moment of significance. Today. And if you noticed a moment of significance, we've all had them. It's a question of noticing them. And the more we notice them, the more meaningful our life becomes. So please go ahead and share your responses. And while you're thinking, maybe we can move on to the next pillar. If there are any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box as you think of them, and then we can take them at the end of the talk today, right? So the next pillar, we talked about purpose, which is about setting goals that were larger than ourselves. We talked about significance, which is, those snapshots in the day that you catch that are beautiful moments, and you savor them. You savor them when they happen, and you savor them later and enjoy them, right? Those are moments of significance. And then coherence is being able to put your life story for yourself, not for anyone else, but being able to put your life story in a coherent format, right? Being able to really put down why, everything in a way that makes sense to you. And it all fits in together, doesn't it? If you have a life that is more purposeful, a life that is more significant, as in life that is significant, by that I mean you're catching moments of significance, you will easily find the coherence, right? So it all goes together. And the more coherent your life is, the more purposeful it will feel, the more, and hopefully you'll also find moments of significance. But these are things that you need to work on independently if you haven't really thought about meaning before. And the idea is that you as you work on these three pillars, you strengthen them, you create a life of more meaning, right? Greater meaning for yourself. And you notice here, there's nothing about, there's nothing about money, there's nothing about fame, there's nothing about power, right? It's not about any of those three things. So the three pillars are quite different from what we run after, right? It doesn't mean that those shouldn't come to us or can't come to us, but these are really the foundations for us for leading a life of meaning. Yeah. Chali. Next one, friendship, right? Research suggests that your friends are better at assessing your temperament than you are. Yeah, they're better at being able to gauge your temperament than you are. But whether it's true or not, I'm sure you'll agree with me when I say that friends make your life sweeter. And it's like the story of the Parsis, right? When they first came to the shores of Gujarat. I don't know this is true, but it's certainly a story that is widely told. It seems they met the Raja, who was based there, and there was a problem with communication because nobody spoke their language, and the Raja sent them a goblet of milk that was filled to the brim, and their priest immediately understood what he meant, and he carefully stirred a spoon of sugar and gave it back to him. And the exchange pleased the Raja, and he allowed the Zoroastrian community to settle in Gujarat. And the point that was being made was that the king was saying, we're already filled to capacity, we don't have any more space for people. And the Parsi community responded by saying that, we're not going to be a burden, we're actually going to assimilate beautifully like a spoonful of sugar does into milk and provide sweetness to the community. So just like that, your friends can provide that sweetness in your life. And they really enrich us, right? In so many ways. They offer us the opportunity to accept ourselves as who we are. They help us grow. And different friends provide us different things, right? They offer us empathic listening. They provide us compassion. They offer us support when times are tough. And we need that. We need friends when it gets tough. In fact, Dan Buettner, who's a National Geographic Fellow, and he did extensive research on the blue zones. He calls these areas where people have lived exceptionally long lives blue zones. And the blue zones are like pockets of landmass all over the world. And these cultures are quite disparate, but they shared certain commonalities, right? And one of the commonalities they shared was strong social ties within families and a comfortably large network of family and friends. And what he found was that this support, right, of a small, tight-knit family, and it could be friends today, right? Our friends become our family when we are no longer living with our family. So a tight network of people that we're close to, and a large network, a fairly large network of family and friends in the outer circle were found to be associated with resilience, with strong mental health throughout our lives, right? And our spouses and our family members are part of that ring of friendship. And the key that Dan Buettner found, and the key that our scriptures as well tell us, is for strengthening these relationships is selfless action, right? Selfless behavior, putting them before ourselves. And so when we learn to put our loved ones ahead of us, our relationships are naturally nurtured. And right now, I know it's challenging to meet our loved ones, but you have Zoom, you have the phone, you can do video calls, you can catch up in different ways, you can send each other parcels. There are ways in which you can stay in touch. There are ways in which you can give to your family and friends. And you can make rituals of meeting your loved ones regularly, right? Right now, of course, it's only available on Zoom, but soon we're hopeful that we'll all be getting out of lockdown, slowly but surely. And when you do meet, make an effort to keep good company, right? And the pandemic has been a great time to rekindle our relationships within our unit, our family unit, since we're all at home together for long periods of time. This is an opportunity that is not going to come our way anymore once life takes on a different momentum as the pandemic wanes, right? Because this too shall pass. The pandemic is going to end. And we know that the end is in sight because vaccinations are going up. The number of vaccines available in the market are increasing. So we know that this is coming to an end. And when it does, let's keep those relationships going. Let's make an effort, right? And at the Happiness Collective, we're inviting you to think of a selfless act of kindness that you could do for a friend, right? By selfless, we mean when you don't expect anything else in return, right? You're just doing it because. And we invite you to share what act of kindness you could do for a friend or a family member this week. And you could tell us now, you can tell us later, but it'd be great if you make that commitment. This is for you, this is not for us. If you make that commitment to us, you're more likely to keep it, and you're more likely to engage in the rest of the workshop as well. Yeah. Also, see, the thing about friendship is, I'm talking to you about selflessness, I'm talking to you about giving without expecting anything. But the beauty is that the more you give, the more you will get back, right? And particularly during illnesses, one of the things that helps us heal is the company of friends. I know that in the pandemic, it's difficult to access them face to face, but you can talk to them on the phone. In fact, the importance of friendships is so it was so abundantly clear to our Ayurvedic system that in the Charaka Samhita, when they describe how hospitals should be built, they say that the hospital should have a space for friends to meet their patients, the patients. So there must be a space where that is specifically created for patients to meet their friends and family, because it is considered an important aspect of healing, right? Now, loneliness is a very serious health concern. And if you're feeling lonely, please reach out to a mental health professional. And, loneliness is not the same as social isolation. So we're all experiencing social isolation right now, but loneliness means feeling lonely even when you're in a room full of people, right? And the UK actually set up a ministry of loneliness because they realized that it was a real serious problem in their country. And so it's something to address if that's something you're feeling. But if you're not, then remember what Maya Angelou said. She said that a friend may be waiting behind a stranger's face, right? So be open to forming new relationships, regardless of how old you are. It's possible to do. And whether it's with co-workers, right, with your neighbors, with your classmates, right, depending on which stage of your life you're in. You may need to make more of an effort, right, but persist, and you'll be surprised at how rich your life becomes and how much strength you draw from those relationships. Yeah. The last piece that we wanted to talk to you about was about leaning into your spirituality. This becomes particularly important if you're grieving for a family member, grieving for a friend. The times are such that even if it's not a person that we're grieving for, maybe we're grieving for lost opportunities, grieving for a loss of a job, grieving about the fact that our children aren't able to be out and about as much as they were, right? Or grieving for the country, for the state of affairs. There's several kinds of grief, but we know that when these people work on their spiritual selves, right, through prayer, study of the scriptures, through service, selfless service, then it's almost like you get this special power to withstand the hardest of life's challenges, right? Like masters. And Siddhant Patnaik, the person that I talked to you about, who was the sports journalist, was a prime example as well. He really drew strength from his spiritual studies, and he told me that let me just tell you what he told me. He said that I'm a big believer in a higher power. I'm not religious, but highly spiritual. Being able to bring all my energy to one point before utilizing it for whatever I'm doing is the biggest secret behind what I've done so far. I believe in the power of meditation. So meditation is another way to increase your spiritual, to ignite your spiritual practice. If it's something that you are inclined to do, it's hard to do, to sit still for minutes on end, but if it's something you can do, it's certainly something you can inculcate. Start with a 5-minute practice a day. To be able to differentiate white noise from the real is the first step, he said. And then it is about faith in the fact that whatever happens will happen for good. God is a river, and you always aim to stay beside it so that there is no dearth of energy. It needs to be nurtured so that after a point, you surrender yourself completely and not worry about the outcome. You just focus on giving your best while being fully aware that there are other factors in the universe at play. If you're destined for something, it's going to come your way in the appropriate shape and size and at the right time. It's as if he was quoting our scriptures. Right? And, famous, powerful doctors who've made a name for themselves, like Dr. Farooq Udwadia at Breach Candy Hospital, Dr. Sundaresh, who was at the Sai Hospital in Bangalore, agree with the power of faith. right? And in the power of, and in the belief in the power of, in the belief and the belief in a higher power when it comes to healing. Dr. Sundaresh told me, he said, it's difficult to assess, measure, even explain by way of science how faith helps, but I've seen it work time and time again. The rate of post-operative infections at the Sai Institute is a third of the same in any other hospital of its size. And he believes it's the faith, the cumulative faith of the doctors and nurses and the patients that play a role. Now, if you're a skeptic, right, and we're all allowed to question, if we're a skeptic, let's look at this piece of evidence rationally, right? Faith in a higher power allows us to surrender to the higher power. What does surrender mean? It means that now we are free to just do what we are meant to do without that background noise of worry, anxious thoughts. They're all gone now because you believe someone else is in charge, right? And then you just do what you know to the best of your ability. And when a doctor is doing the best that when a doctor is working to the best of his ability, when the patient is focusing on healing himself, when the nurse is working to the best of her ability, what is going to happen? The best outcome is going to be there, right? And that's exactly what they found vis-a-vis the post-operative infections. Yeah. So it's essentially then, and everyone ends up working towards the patient's healing and their recovery. Also, having faith in a higher power means the doctor-patient relationship is far smoother. So, and the same thing has been found in cancer patients. Their quality of life is better if they have higher spiritual well-being, right? So this is a perfect time for us to nurture our spiritual selves, because if you think about it, right, we're the only species that has been affected by the pandemic. In fact, I'll go so far as to say all the other species are doing better with us locked up, right? The gardens are doing better. Nature is just flowering right now because we are stuck at home, which tells us something. We've been taking so much from this earth, right? That now it's time for us to contribute. It is time for us to move from consuming to contributing. And this is a great time for us to introspect, to think about what we are here to do on this earth, right? To do our duty, which at its crux is doing unto others what we would like them to do unto ourselves, and moving towards contributing instead of consuming. And with that thought, I'm going to stop my share of talking and give you guys a chance to talk, to share, to ask questions. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Sujata. What brilliant, brilliant insights. I think a perfect mix of stories, scientific fact, insights from research. And I think that's really the nature of your work. I think even the way that your book is written is very much a balance of both scientific fact and personal stories and insight. Thank you so much. Everyone in the audience, we're sure you found that very interesting and very useful. The floor is open for questions and answers and just for generally sharing thoughts and insights. And so if you would like to do so, please feel free to switch on your video and your mic and share with all of us what you're thinking, how you're feeling, and also if you have any questions for Dr. Sujata.
We have a quiet audience today.
I think you've given us so much to think about. So at least I'm definitely finding myself reflecting quite a bit. We'll also be taking questions from our YouTube Live. If you don't feel comfortable sharing with your video on, you can also type your questions in the chat box, or you can message me privately and I can ask anonymously. Chitra says, you put it so beautifully, the power of faith. Chitra, please feel free to switch on your video and share your thoughts on the power of faith. You're on mute. We can't hear you.
That is the next exercise which you have to do after putting the video on. And we usually forget that. Well, it was a beautiful session as the earlier one. And I'm a strong advocate of power of faith. I'm myself a doctor, and I totally can relate to this when it comes to healing patients or even otherwise as well. I blindly believe in Supreme, and I think it works wonders many a times.
Thank you for sharing, Chitra. Dr. Sujata, we have a question. The question is, how do you be selfless to others around you when you are not able to be selfless to yourself, and when others around you are not being selfless towards you?
Yeah. So that's the interesting thing, right? When we start small, right? Start small, but do it with a pure intent. Do it truly selflessly, and then see the magic that will happen. And please tell us, please share with us what happened. Do it as a little experiment. If you don't believe me, and see what happens. You will be returned. I'll give you a clue. You will be rewarded manifold. Not by the people that you may expect things from, but from others. So just start doing it and then see what happens.
Hello, Auntie. Do you have a question or a comment or an insight?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that it is really fantastic. Sujata, congratulations. And Happiness Collective, congratulations for bringing her to this forum, which is helping all of us in a big way. Today, I'm feeling very, very sad. I don't know why. And I mean, what Sujata has said is giving a lot of hope, but it's a very difficult time. I mean, nothing particular has happened, but I wanted to share, for example, that there was some laborer families, some houses are being built in front of our house, and they worked for several months and they had to leave just before the lockdown, and they were not paid a single penny. 6 families went to UP, and the builders are doing this. I just don't know what should be done, what I can do. I reached out to several people, and then I started like gently took all the numbers and started calling up, you know, the supervisor, this one, that one. And before they left, they gave some money, you know, like instead of 1,80,000, they gave 1 lakh between 4 families. And those guys left. They said, after 1 week, we'll give. I said, I don't want to go to the television. I know somebody in the government high up in, you know, and I don't want to do this. This is all, I was just cooking up stuff, you know. I thought that first I'll be very gentle with them, appeal to their conscience. But in the builder, for example, said, don't ever call me again, meaning, you know, you can do what you like type of thing, despite the fact that I talked to him. And he said the payment will be made, but it was not made. Now it's 2 months down the line. That family that got paid finally. The contractor who had got this labor, and they came from very far, 36 hours plus 12 hours journey from Bengal, one corner of Bengal on the border of Bihar. And they left, you know, they basically must have spent quite a lot because there were 4 adults and 3 small children. And they've been calling me regularly. And they said the money still hasn't come, and I've been checking because it's right in front of my house. So what I'm saying is maybe it is that this guy called me again today and said, really, nothing has happened. My mother is very sick. And I'm just thinking, you know, I asked a friend of mine, she said, why do you want to get involved? And she does a lot of court cases for, people who are being victimized, let's say, being put behind bars and so on. I mean, she does a lot of good work. She says they may come and attack you, they can come and rob you, they can come and, how it is. But it was on my anniversary in April. I said, this is the gift I'm going to give myself. I'm going to try my level best to do something. Because I don't know, my conscience just cannot accept, that I just keep sitting. Of course, I'm old and there are other pressures and so many. We've also lost a lot of friends and people in the family and so on. But that doesn't hurt so much as to see a young person or these people who are poor, who are working, and they are just, just because they are not rich, they are no less human, or they don't have everything, the whole equipment, whether it's a brain or a heart or a soul, all the things we assume. We don't even treat them the way we would treat an animal, I mean, we treat them worse than that. And what is I thought, that the pandemic will make people better people. They will realize many things, but a very ugly side of human nature has come forth. People have become also very self-centered, and and it's not nice to. So I don't know. I just feel that, you're talking about friendships. If I open my eyes and see properly, I also see that what they are tinged with, the kind of a friend of mine whom I was seeing very regularly, even through the pandemic, because they had a garden. She said, I'm going to be selfish. I said, I'm so happy that the thing has lifted. And she said, I'm going to be selfish because I'm going to be seeing my children as she has to travel abroad. And I'm not going to meet anybody. Right. Now she's got a 2-acre, 3-acre garden. And you don't have to be very close. And we were meeting during the first lockdown, once in 1 month, once in 2 months, etc. So I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I fully understand where she's coming from. And she's a very social spirited person. She's an amazing human being, and she's a new friend of mine. And I've taken to her in a very, very big way, because she's all the time making other people happy, helping people. But what I'm trying to say is that this fear, this anxiety has kind of gone and settled deep somewhere in the psychology of a person. And how do you just bring it out? All that Sujata is saying rings truer than anything else. We who have had experience, who have read, she is giving the essence of it in a very nice way, But at the same time, I don't know, whether just the solution is to go to a shrink or to go to a, I mean, I know all these things are good, but in a nutshell, what is this thing to lift yourself out of this kind of a helpless situation, mentally, psychologically, that you feel that you're going into it and you're not able to lift yourself up?
I think Aditi Kaki, it's the spiritual piece is obviously the act is foundational, right? But sometimes we forget our knowledge, and to really remind ourselves again, there is no harm in seeing a therapist, because
I understand. I'm saying, so that's the solution.
I think so. Particularly when we're feeling like this, when we're seeing the negatives so clearly and we're feeling them, when we're hurting so much as you are, then I think we need the comfort of that of that space, of that safe space, of a healer who can help us. And then once we're back when we're feeling more healed, then the spiritual practice can serve us. Whether it's, chanting or reading the scriptures or being part of a satsang, all of that. And maybe you could do that simultaneously.
Yeah.
But I'm so sorry to see you hurting so much. I'm so sorry.
We're so sorry, Ms. Desai. And thank you so much for sharing with us.
Yeah.
We're so sorry that this is something that's happening to you. And everyone in the chat box is wishing you well, is commending you on your bravery for sharing with us today.
Absolutely.
You can switch off my video if you like.
Yes, of course. Neelam, did you have something to share?
I've typed it out.
Ah,
I connected with the power of now because when I came to Bangalore, I was feeling very stressful. I was in Hyderabad at that time. And then someone told me that go to Sumeda's. I and a friend of mine, we went to Sumeda's in Hyderabad. And that gives me a purpose. That gave me a purpose of life. And a lot of things that I'm hearing from you, Doctor, are practically the same. And that is why I've read through Power of Now. Here and now is my purpose. That is not a question, just a feeling. Thank you, Sujata.
Most welcome. Thank you for sharing, Neelam.
Power of here and now.
absolutely. Thank you for sharing. Would anyone else like to share, either by switching on their video or in the chat box?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Whether you can see me or not, it doesn't matter. No, I just wanted to, Sujata mentioned among different things that she said, one thing she said which would help in times like this. I just wanted to share my own experience. We've been in this lockdown. We've not been able to see our family. We've not been able to travel, which we normally do. But what I found, and the one thing she mentioned, which resonates with me, is to find a purpose. For even in a time like this, for life, you have a purpose, but different situations in life, you have to decide what you can do with that situation and have even a short, sort of, not a big timeline, because you don't know how long this is going to last. And two things have come together for me. Not being able to go anywhere or not go anywhere, not meet friends, but meet on Zoom or telephones and WhatsApp. And there are a few people in our society itself. It's a building with about 90 families. And because we used to travel a lot, I hardly, we kind of just had hello and hi and hello kind of, and they're all much younger to me. They're like, most of them, I'm probably almost twice their age. But what I decided to do during this time was to share food, just because people can't, and these younger people are used to, dining, going out, having a change of, eating something different. So I said, whatever, and nothing necessarily fancy, but I decided, this was a decision I took, and I said, I will, what is cooked at home, I will share with not everyone on the same day, but with different people on different days. And it brought them so much joy. And I have enjoyed, like she says, you do something not for yourself. It does give you joy, but you do it knowing that, they would look forward to something coming. So this has created friends that I didn't have. Much younger, I can still call them friends. But I thought, like what she said, it's selfless. You're not there. Somewhere, of course, there is when they are, somebody else is happy, you feel happy. But you're happy for them being happy. So I have, I've become the Tai or Didi for this for these few families, say half a dozen families, and that's how we went through this, and it continues. Just messages, positive messages on WhatsApp to these younger women in the society, and food. So it brought joy to them, and that joy returned manifold to me. So I totally resonate with, so if you keep thinking and not watching, I didn't watch the news too much. We knew what was happening, but there was no point in, and we would have liked to.
I'm going to interrupt and say you also got food back, didn't you? You got lots of different kinds of food back.
That's what it comes back to you. But the reason for sending it, like, I don't send it in my containers, because in Maharashtra, if you send it in a container, the container has to be filled and sent back. So I would send in containers which don't have to be returned, and yet, they reciprocated, and they, so it was a very enjoyable and very, positive experience, and made friends in that. I mean, just some messages through WhatsApp, and people have not even visited. These are homes I've not even actually gone to their home. So they're not known friends. These are unknown people who have become, friends in whatever way you can take it.
And you haven't even met them, I think, right?
I haven't been to their homes socially before. These are all these people I've not socially interacted with. They're much younger, and we used to travel so much. So we hardly sort of stayed put. So we sort of connected with the other friends that we had, whom we can't see anymore. So it's been a great experience, and it continues to be. So that's, when you don't think about yourself, but you think about somebody else, that, not in a way feeling sorry for them, but just, in whatever you feel like doing, you want to do. So I resonate with that.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you everyone for sharing. And with that, we've come to the end of our evening. But before we go away, I would like us to fill out another poll, if you would be so kind to. We want to know how you're feeling right now, whether you learned something useful in this event, and whether you think this would be useful for your friends and family. We're aware that these are very difficult times, and we're trying our level best to build resources for mental health and emotional wellness. Thank you so much for joining us today in that endeavor. We hope you had a lovely evening. We hope you took away something meaningful. We hope you are safe with your friends and family. And we hope that you join us again for our programming at the Happiness Collective.
Thank you.